This man tortures his girlfriend for 17 days straight, and he almost gets away with it. His name is Jason. We'll get back to him. So, meet the 17-year-old Denitra. She's a graduate. She becomes a nurse or a home health aide or something in the nursing field. She's doing really good in her life. One day, she goes out with one of her childhood friends to the friend's family gathering. So they get there, they're just chilling, they're hanging out, and this is where she meets Jason. She's like, "Oh, okay, he's tall, he's dark, he's handsome." They instantly click. Jason does eventually ask her for a phone number, but she respectfully declines due to their age gap. He's about 12 years older than her, so she's like, "Nah, I'm good." Now, fast forward a few years later, they do run into each other again, and Jason does convince Denitra to let him take her out. So he takes her out to dinner and they end up back at his place where they hit it off. They're just hanging out, they're kicking it, they're having a good time. So they do end up dating and Denitra falls in love. She's like, "This man treats me so good. He buys her flowers, he runs her bath water, the whole nine." So Denitra decides to bring him to meet her mother. So they meet. The mom instantly likes him and she gives Denisha the okay. She's like, "Yeah, go for it. He's a good guy. He's clean cut. He's very respectable. I approve." So, with that being said, Denisha does end up moving in with him. And, a little while after, he's like, "Yeah, I got some news. I got something to tell you, Denisha. It's kind of a surprise. It might be a shock, whatever, but I do got something to tell you." So he brings his 8-year-old daughter over to meet Denitra. He's like, I kind of got, split custody, full custody, or whatever it was, and that she's coming to live with him now. Denitra's excited because they both instantly click. Natalie, she takes a liking to Denitra. Denitra takes a liking to Natalie, and Natalie starts calling Denitra mommy. This is Natalie. Now they start dating, and so one day Crystal, she gets a knock on her door. She's at home. She's just taking a nap. She's sleeping. Boom, 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 boom. She hear a bang on her door. She instantly jumps up. She goes to the door. Uh, Crystal does have 3 kids. She has 2 daughters and a son. So the neighbor at the door is like, "Hurry up. Come downstairs. Your daughter's getting choked out by this man. She needs your help." So Crystal, not knowing which one of her daughters it was, she rushes out the door. She goes outside. She sees her daughter on the ground, and the neighbors are like, "He just ran. He ran that way." Crystal instantly starts running after him. He eventually turns through a dark alley. She's still approaching him. He turns around. She sees his face, and she is shocked. She's so surprised by who this man was. So the police end up, coming through the alley also, guns drawn. They're like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Him, that's him. This is the man that was just choking my daughter. Arrest him." So they arrest him, put him in a cop car. Crystal goes back to the house. She can't find her daughter, and she's asking neighbors, like, "Where did my daughter go? Where is she?" They're like, "Oh, she went upstairs to one of her friend's house. You need to go up there and check on her." So Crystal goes upstairs. She walks into the friend's home, and she sees her daughter, Denitra. She has lashes all over her body. She's bleeding. Her clothes are sticking to her skin. It's just horrific. So her mom wraps her up in a blanket, brings her downstairs to the police. The police are like, "We need you to identify this man. Is this who was choking you?" Denitra comes to the car. She's like, "Yes, that's him." They haul him off to jail and they take her to the hospital. So they arrive at the hospital. Unfortunately, not too long after, her condition worsens and she ends up in intensive care. So police are like, "Okay, we can't talk to her. She's in intensive care. There's not too much to go on." Eventually, Denisha does become stable. She gets a whole lot better. So the police are able to go back to the hospital and get Denisha's side of the story. So they approach her. They're like, "What happened? Tell us what's up. How did you end up here?" So Denisha breaks it down. So she explains from the time they met and he met her mom and this and that. And she's like, "One day I came home from work. I had to stay late and I'm not able to answer my phone while I'm working." And he snaps. he's like, "Why did you answer your phone? Why are you late?" Da da da. So she's explaining to him like, "I'm sorry, babe. I can't answer my phone while I'm working, and they made me stay late. I have no control over that." So they make up. He gets over it. Not too long after that, they do go to one of his family gatherings, and they're talking. And Denitra ends up getting a phone call from one of her male friends. Denitra answers the phone. She's like, "Hey, what's up, Mike?" or whatever his name is. But Jason doesn't like this, so he snaps. He's like, "Why would you answer the phone? Who do you think you are? Who do you think I am?" And he had bought her some tennis shoes, which was what she was wearing that night, and he took them off her feet, threw them in the garbage, and he's just tripping. Eventually, he ends up hitting her in her face. So she starts crying, breaking down, and she's like, "Let me call my brother." She calls her brother to come and get her. She tells him, like, "Jason just hit me. Come and get me now." So while she's waiting on her brother to come and get her, Jason does come back and he's like, "I'm so sorry, babe. I didn't mean it. It'll never happen again. I was just upset." She forgives him. They kiss and they make up. Now, Crystal, Denisha's mom, she ends up, hearing about this situation. So she calls Denitra, like, "Daughter, what's going on? What's this I'm hearing about Jason putting his hands on you?" She's like, "Yeah, mom. Oh, trust me, it's nothing. I think it only happened one time. We argue here and there, and this is the only time he has ever put his hands on me. I promise you it won't happen again." So her mom's like, "Okay, well, all right." So this is what she's telling the police, and the police are still like, "Yeah, but this doesn't explain the lacerations on your skin, the scars, the bleeding, the bruises. This doesn't explain that. So please tell us what really happened." So Denisha finally comes to her senses, and she's like, "Okay, let me tell y'all everything." So she's telling them, like, eventually she ends up getting the courage to leave him. So one day she gets up and she leaves. This is after he already hit her at the family gathering, snapped on her about working late at work. So she just ends up leaving. But she's thinking about Natalie. She's like, "I can't just leave without telling her goodbye. I can't just leave her like that." So she decides to go back to the apartment one last time to say goodbye to Natalie. She gets there, she tells Natalie goodbye. She grabs her stuff and she's headed for the door. Jason's not having it. So he grabs her. He's like, "Oh no, you're not going anywhere." He grabs her, brings her in the room, and he ties her up. This is when he starts beating her with belts. He's beating, 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 and eventually he switches to an extension cord and he's just beating this girl. She's screaming at her, yelling at her. And at moments he'll he'll come back to his senses, sit down, start crying, like, "What am I doing? I'm so sorry, babe. I don't know why I'm doing this to you. I'm upset. Why would you do this to me? I'm angry. I'm so sorry. I don't mean this." Then he'll snap right back into his craziness and start beating her again. So at one point, he ends up tying her feet up and he's burning the bottom of her feet. So at this point, she's like, "I gotta say something. I gotta do something." So she's yelling as loud as she can. She's stomping, 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 hoping someone hears her, hoping the neighbor hears her and calls the police. So eventually he stuffs something in her mouth so that she couldn't scream anymore, ties her feet up, that way she can't stomp anymore. And at this point, her mom and her job is calling her, wondering like, "What's going on? Where are you? Are you okay?" So Jason does make her call her mom and her job. So she calls her mom and tells her, like, "Hey, mom, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm sorry. I've just been tired. I love you. I'm good. I'm okay." She calls her job, tells her job that she doesn't have a babysitter. So, she's not able to come in. They're like, "Okay, cool." After she calls them, he goes back to torturing her again and again and again. And unfortunately, Natalie does witness it because she is there, because she is on summer break from school, and she's peeping through the door and she's seeing what her father is doing to Denitra. So one night, um, he does end up untying her and laying in the bed with her. So they're laying down. He's so tired and beating her so much that he falls asleep. Denitra gets the courage at this point to get up. She's like, "This is my escape. This is the time for me to get up and just run." So She sneaks out of the bed. She grabs her shoes. She grabs her clothes. She dips. Okay, she runs and she does not look back. She heads for the train station. She hops on the train, and that's where she's walking back to her mother's house. Now, this is a sigh of relief for Denitra because she has finally gotten away from her abuser. So, as she's approaching before she hits the corner to get to her mom's house, bam, Jason appears in his car and she just freezes. She's so shocked, like, what? Like, how did he get here? How did he know? How did he get here so fast from, I just left? So he approaches her, and that's when he grabs her and he starts beating her. And that brings us back to when the neighbors knocked on Denitra's mother's door and let her know that her daughter was getting beat on, by this man. So that's her story. Fast forward, he's locked up for some years now. Denitra ends up getting a phone call from her longtime friend, and the friend is like, I got something for you. So she's like, hold on real quick. So she clicks over, she adds Jason to the call. And Denitra's just like she just can't believe it. He's calling me, he still loves me. I can't believe this. Like, why is he still calling me after all of this? So he's just crying to her and telling her, oh, I love you, I miss you so much. She's telling him back that she loves him and she also misses him so much. So, and he's like, I want you to come see me. Please come and visit me. She agrees. So eventually she goes to visit him. She hops on the train station. She keeps all this information from her family, of course, because she doesn't want them to know that she's going to see this man that tortured her. She goes to visit him. They're sitting down, they're talking. Again, he's crying. He's like, oh, I miss you so much. I love you so much. I just want to be with you. And, she's saying the same thing back to him. And he's like, if you really mean that, I need you to do me a favor. And she's like, what's up? He's like, I need you to write a letter to get me exonerated. I need you to write a letter stating that it was somebody else who did this to you. You blamed it on me somehow, but it was not me. Unfortunately, Denitra agrees. She's so in love, so she's like, all right, I'll do it. Whatever. I'm going to write this letter and I'm just going to lie and say someone else did it. So the DA or whatever, the judge and the courts and stuff, so they're shocked. They're like, hold on, what is this? They get a letter for exoneration and they're just so confused. Like, now she's saying that he didn't do it and it was someone else. So the police go to her house. They go to speak with her and ask her, like, what's up? What's this letter all about? And she's like, yeah, it wasn't Jason. It was one of my ex-boyfriends, Jonathan. This is Jonathan. Unfortunately, I am unable to find a photo of him because he does not exist. And they're just kind of side eyeing her, like, come on now. Eventually, she breaks. She's like, okay, this is, he did. He talked me into it. She told them what happened, how he called her, and coerced her into writing this letter. So now, bam, here comes court. They're telling her, like, the only way to charge him, Denitra, is if you tell the truth. If you testify against this man and tell us that he is the one who did it. They get to court. She takes a stand. She says what she says, but the defense is like grilling her, like, what's up with this letter then? If it really was him, why would you write this letter saying this and that? So their last opportunity is to bring someone else to the stand, and unfortunately, it has to be his own daughter, Natalie. They bring Natalie to the stand and they're like, what did you see? So she tells everything. She's like, yeah, I seen my daddy beating on her, tied her up. She tells it all. Ultimately, he is found guilty and sentenced to 25 years, which is the maximum sentence for this crime. Unfortunately, I was unable to find a mugshot of him, but here is an actual photo of him. Denitra does move on. She goes back to school. She ends up graduating and living a happy life.